The Dramatist Guild is the National Association of Playwrights, Composers, Lyricists, and Librettists. For the first time in a generation, our industry is undergoing a tectonic shift. If you're not a member, join today. Learn more at our website.
I'm Joey Stocks. I'm the Director of Publications here at the Dramatist Guild and the editor of the Dramatist magazine. My co-hosts are both DG Council members and Publications Committee members. Please help me welcome Amanda Green and Christine Toy Johnson. Hello again.
Hello again.
How was your week, Joey? You always ask.
My week has been good. It's been very busy in different ways because my boyfriend and I have rented an empty apartment in Provincetown, and so on Saturday we are escaping to Provincetown for a month.
Good for you.
Just for a change of scenery. And we're still going to be working just like we are. We're just going to be working from a different apartment so that we're not just staring at the same thing all the time. And when we go for a walk, we'll be right there by the ocean, which is great. And we're looking forward to that. So that's great. We're just getting a lot of things pulled together. And I should say right now that that next week, we will be taking a break. There will be no show next week, but we'll be back the following week on May 28th. How are you all? How are you, Amanda?
I'm good. I had a pretty good week. Yeah, my husband's getting ready to go back to work. He's a doctor, so that makes me nervous. And work has been okay with me. Just, it was terrible. And then I made a breakthrough and, it seems like a good song. I'm like a trained monk. You give me, you throw something at me, I go, wee, so if a song is like, oh, this might be good, then I'm great, so that's how I am.
Good.
How about you, Christine?
Doing okay. Met a couple of deadlines this week with a couple of projects that I've been working on with Jason Ma, who you all met a couple of weeks ago, and Bobby Cronin, who everybody knows too. So that was exciting, and did some rewrites and some other stuff. And also, last week we talked to some fine women from the Women's Theater Festival in North Carolina, Joanna Edwards and Rowan Haight, and we are continuing our conversations for finding a way for me to maybe lead some panels during the festival on behalf of the Guild and in their discussions about diversity, equity, inclusion. So I'm very excited about that.
Fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
That's so great.
And I'm excited to see all the people today because they're some of the smartest people I know in this hour. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. I'm not sure how I got in this room. I just invited more people to the table who are smarter than I am. And I'm just going to be thrilled and just grin and listen. But before we begin, let's bring on another incredibly smart person.
Wow, the smartest.
The smartest. Yes.
Amy, would you, while we're doing the little intro, would you bring Lisa Kron on stage, please?
Woo!
Yes. So Lisa Kron, she is the definition of one of the smartest people I know, and one of my heroes. She is a playwright, actor, and activist. She's hugging us without her sound on, but you can turn your sound on because we're going to talk to you soon. She's a Tony and Obie winner, known for her plays Well, In the Wake, 2.5-minute ride. Am I supposed to say the letters that are asterisks out, the Verizon play, or? Okay. And of course, the musical Fun Home with Janine Sasori. Lisa serves as Vice President for the Dramatist Guild. Welcome. So great to see you.
So happy to see all of you.
All right, Lisa.
I miss you all.
How are you doing? How are you doing?
Good. Amanda and I saw each other earlier today in a steering committee meeting.
Yes.
Yes, for the
Great.
drama skills.
I saw that wallpaper still looks good. You got good wallpaper, lady.
There you go.
I know we're all about our backgrounds, right? And what we where we
I
place
also
ourselves.
I'm like through a gauze. I
You
don't know
are a
why that
little.
is. I'm very like soft filter.
You are.
Yeah, it's great. It's very Lucille Ball and Mame.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, are you ready to dive in? Are you ready to play
Yeah.
this lightning round?
Lightning
Okay.
round. Lightning
Lightning
round. Oh
round.
God, I'm worse. I'm
Question.
so bad at this. You know, Janine and I and Allison Bechtel were on Fresh Air, and Terry Gross asked me to be more concise. It was one of the most humiliating moments of my life. So, lightning round. This is not going to be my sweet spot. I just want to say.
Let's just say thoughtful and considered answers.
Well, all right.
All right. First question. What must you have in order to begin a new play? That's my dog bark.
What must I have in order to begin? A deadline.
Okay.
That makes absolute sense.
Yeah. What must you have in the room while you're writing it?
I need like a chair and a footstool. I don't like a desk. I don't like any kind of a desk. And a cup of tea. And yeah, I'll stop there.
No desk. You write so you
No.
keep your laptop on your lap. Oh, okay.
Yeah. With my feet up.
With your feet up. Okay.
Mhm.
Very good.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you need in order to finish that play?
Oh, God, a miracle. That's how I feel now. Wow. I don't know. A blow to the head. I don't know. A gun. I don't know. You know what? Great collaborators. And again, a deadline. You know, I really like to work in workshop. I really like to write for actors. That's my favorite, is to be able to, it's like to know the actors are going to be there at like noon, and I'll get up at 4 a.m. and just write and write until it's just enough time to like take a shower before I have to get on the subway, and then send the pages to the professional but resentful stage manager. And that is how I work. I really love that. I can understand, hearing words coming out of actors' mouths. It's like a whole different thing for me than trying to understand it on the page.
That makes sense. When you get stuck while writing, how do you maneuver out of that?
I try to switch to longhand. I mean, the truth is that my concentration is weird. It's sort of all or nothing. And so I get stuck in a position like, I have a sign next to my desk that says move every 30 minutes, but I never look at it. And so if I'm deep in concentration, I literally won't move for hours. This doesn't happen that often, but moving around, taking a shower, taking a walk, and writing longhand, just physically moving something is useful.
As a writer, what have you not done but want to try?
I don't know. What's your answer to that, Christine?
Oh my goodness.
Shoes on the other foot. Not so easy, is it?
Not so easy. A graphic novel.
Oh, graphic
I'm gonna say
novel.
that. Yeah. I don't know. I've never thought of that in my life, but that's what came to my mind.
Oh, that's so good. I wish I was an essayist. I'm not. I'm really not, but I wish I was. In my dreams, I am.
I think you are. From my experience working with you on various things at the Guild, I think you are. I believe in you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
What is a common misconception about you, Lisa?
I think I started out as a performer, and then I was writing for a long time and nobody thought of me as a writer. And then there was by the time I was working on Fun Home, when it was at the Public, I was also in Good Person of Szechuan Brecht's play at La Mama. And this young guy was doing this, sort of a publicity reel, and he was interviewing me, and he was like, how does it feel to be on stage? And it was so funny. He had no idea I was an actor. So I feel like
Tony nominated actor.
Thank you.
You're right.
And so I feel like that's been kind of for a while, the misconception was that I wasn't a writer, and then it was that I didn't have any experience being on stage.
What is the best writing advice you've ever given or received?
Well, I will say I didn't think of myself as a writer for a long time, and the point where that changed was when I realized that the sense of extreme discomfort that I felt when I was writing was what it felt like to write, and and that it wasn't going to go away. One really great piece of advice that I have heard, I think my partner Madeline said it to me, but I think she heard it from somebody else, and it was about going to the MacDowell colony to be a writer, about going on retreat. And the advice was, however long you are away on retreat, I think it's the first 20% of that, just sleep, just don't work. Like when you go into an intense period like that, take the first part of it and just let yourself rest and do whatever, because you're not really gonna, you have this idea that you're just gonna just work every second, but you can't. You need to change states, and you can give yourself time to do that. That was really excellent advice.
Cool. What production do you wish you'd seen?
Oh God, so many. I wish that I'd seen Gospel at Colonus, the original production. I wish that I was so scared of everything when I moved to New York. I don't know how I managed to get myself here. And a friend of mine said to me, I have tickets for Laurie Anderson United States at BAM. Do you want to go? And I was like, what's BAM? Where is it? I don't think so. That feels weird and far, and I don't think so. I always regretted that.
Yeah. I'd have gone to that for you.
Sure. Who wouldn't? Yeah.
This question comes from Lori Flanagan Heggie, the Guild's regional rep in the Twin Cities. How are you keeping sane?
Well, I would say the building that I live in, the neighbors are quite connected, and sort of looking in on each other, and checking in. If anybody goes to the grocery store, they check with other people to see what people need, and we sort of, people bake, and then they, there's somebody in the building who, in the beginning of the lockdown, she was just like a secret angel baker, and she would just leave individually wrapped things by the door, either for the people in the building or for delivery people. I think those kinds of interactions have been very stabilizing. And I feel like, I feel existential dread, like we all do. I'm also increasingly feel such rage at the, not just lack of leadership, but anti-leadership. And so the ways in which I can translate that into action, for instance, we raise money for a Future Now fund, which is part of a giving circle of a bunch of writers and theater people raising money for Future Now, which is an organization working to elect progressive leaders on the state level. And I think every time I do something that is where I can not just feel, where I can feel like I have some volition and that I can do something that makes a difference, or join into efforts that I feel like are making a difference, a better way to say that it's always surprisingly relieving to do that. It's hard though, it's a bad time. Dissociation, I would say. Dissociation also.
Yeah.
No, that's a great answer, but not the dissociation.
Negronis.
What's that?
Negronis.
Our final question was submitted last week by Diane Reeves. What is an important non-creative area about which a new playwright should become knowledgeable?
so many things. I think, you know, I often think about Thornton Wilder, you know, enlisted in the army in his 40s. And part of the reason he wanted to do that was he wanted to be in the world, you know, in his, one of his essays, in whatever that book of essays is, that amazing book of essays, the character is in the name somewhere. Anyway, he talks about how writers often end up only writing about writers and or their childhoods, you know, if they grew up and became writers, they lost track of how other people live. And being in the army, part of what that was for him was to be in a different kind of a world and be with people who were living in different ways. And so I think, yeah, I think there's so much for us to encounter and do and learn and be that this can only make us better writers.
I love that.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank
That was
you,
it.
guys.
That was fun.
That's it. You did it.
That's
did
so
such
nice.
a
I
great
feel
job.
I feel jealous of the people to come. I'm so sad to leave you guys because I love you so much.
Oh,
Well, you can hang out if you want. Right.
Yeah,
But
hang
we're
out.
gonna make some
I'll
space
listen.
visually for some of our
Of
guests.
course, of
Okay.
course. That's all right. Guys, don't cut me off, please. Don't cut me off. I'm gonna get really needy. Bye, you guys. Bye,
Bye.
everybody out there.
Bye.
Bye.
Take
Love
care.
you. Bye.
Lisa.
Take care.
Oh, Lisa.
Oh, that's so good. Okay, well, listen, we've got a big panel coming up, and I want to
Yes.
make sure that I give them plenty of space to share everything that they have to say with us. So we're going to bring on our moderators first.
Yes. So first up, Teresa Coleman Wash, another one of the smartest people I know, is a producer, playwright, and founding artistic director for the Bishop Arts Theater Center in Dallas, Texas.
You are too kind.
Here
Christy.
she is.
How's everybody? It's good to see you guys. I
You
miss
too.
you.
You.
And Todd London, who is here, is the head of the MFA playwriting program at the New School and the director of theater relations for the Dramatist Guild. Hey, Todd.
Todd,
Hi, am I on stage now?
you are on
on
stage.
Hello.
Welcome back to both of you. Thank you so much for being here. We
Yeah.
Thank you
really
for having
appreciate
us.
it.
We get to be here together.
That's
Yes.
right. I know that you have a lot of questions for our panelists. So let's go ahead and bring them on now.
Perfect.
Okay.
Great.
So we have Nataki Garrett, the artistic director of Oregon Shakespeare Festival.
We have Rick Dildeen, the artistic director of Alabama Shakespeare Festival and a fellow Arkansan.
We have Maria Goyanes, who's the artistic director of Woolly Mammoth Theater Company.
Yeah.
We have Robert Gary Fleming, the artistic director of Actors Theater of Louisville. And I just have to share with you all before he gets on here that we did Cats together in the 80s. And I'm so excited to see him on screen.
Wow.
That's great. And Julianne Boyd is the artistic director of Barrington Stage Company. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Here we go. Oh,
Thank you
Julianne's
so
on
much
her
for
way.
having us.
Great.
Here he is. Here he's coming. There he is.
Thank you for
Hi.
having us.
There's Robert.
You've been outed, Robert, as a fellow cat.
I am. Good to see you, Chris.
It's great to see you.
Thank you all for being here. Listen, without further ado, well, actually, there is some ado that I have to say before I turn this over to
Yes.
Teresa and Todd. I just want to say to all of you, because I've never met any of you, thank you so much for answering my email, let alone being here. I really appreciate that.
A pleasure.
Great.
Yes, of course. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
You bet. All right. Okay. So I'm going to be quiet now, and I'm going to turn this over to Teresa and Todd.
Hi, friends. How are you?
Hello, around the screen.
Yes.
So good to see you all. So Teresa and I've sort of divvied up the moderating here, and I'm gonna lead us off. But the first thing I really want to say is I want to echo Joey's thank you to you. I mean, I feel like I have a special window into how very busy you guys are and how very overwhelming this moment is for all of you. And because I expect that we have a lot of playwrights listening, I just want to give you guys at least one small smidge of the love that you are due at this moment for working round the clock. And I'm including Teresa in this because her daily life is running Bishop Arts. You are working around the clock, I know, against all odds to keep our field alive and our profession alive. And that means the profession of writers and actors and designers and directors and everybody. And we're riding on you and we're rooting for you. And so I just want to acknowledge that. We're going to talk about some of that today, especially what's happening right now. But I've been in conversation with some of you I'm meeting for the first time, but we know and we see and we thank you. So there's that. Joey invited this particular group of artistic leaders in large part because of what you're doing right now to deal with this international pall, this emergency fog that we're all in. And I know that you guys are dealing on many levels. I wrote down here, you're planning, you're saving, and you're building. And those things shouldn't all have to happen at the same time in the same way.
Yeah.
And I know for many of you some of you are newer artistic directors of your organization, and you've come in with a whole vision for those organizations. And then here we are. The vision is day-to-day, bail. So part of the question is, how do you keep that vision alive? But specifically, we want to know about what you're doing right now. I wrote down this phrase that must be like the name of a 90s romantic comedy. It's the spectacular bravery of now, which is really kind of what we're dealing with today. What are your answers to this moment? What are the moves that you're making? What are the actions that you're taking to pivot? And we know that each of you in your theaters has some really concrete plans right now. And we're not even talking about the very long future. So that's kind of our subject. And I'm going to turn it over to Teresa, who's going to start the ball rolling.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here with all of you. You're absolutely right, Todd. This moment is calling on us to have this bifurcated brain where we're managing the health of our organization while also still trying to create opportunities for artists, because what I know for sure is that artists are the first investors. When our building was donated to us, it was the artist, who came in and helped us really made our space, claim our space as home. So I want to start the conversation off with Rick and Nataki. Both of you guys are, Nataki, you're at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, and Rick, you're at the Alabama Shakespeare Festival. I'm curious to know more about your micro commissions and the work that you're doing with playwrights. Can you talk a little bit about that? Nataki, will you?
Yeah, I'll start. So we have we actually have a series of micro commissions. Some have not been announced, so I'll announce a couple through this site. But we have one called COVID-19, and we're commissioning 19 responders. So it's all kinds of artists, including writers and multimedia artists. I do know a number of playwrights who also write in every other kind of medium. And we're co-opting this idea of COVID as a way to pivot, to talk about what our response is, and to create perhaps art pieces, little mini pieces, to respond to a series of thematic prompts about this pandemic and what it's offered us, but also what it's done to us. And because our artists are multimedia, they're also ranging across the United States. So we're listening for voices in every part of the United States. We have a couple of other ways for people to respond. We have this thing called Make Create, where we're going to be responding to this idea of how do you make work and how do you create work, again through the medium of this particular, like, is it a Zoom thing, or did you create some sort of multimedia project in the past? What is your path to get to creating work in this time? So what we're trying not to do is limit our writers so that it's just playwrights, and because most of my playwright friends are everything writers, and they do all kinds of other kinds of art. And we're also trying not to limit the scope so that people who are maybe not seen as primarily playwrights can also perform in these commission arenas. So actors who write, and designers who write, and just to sort of open it up, because everybody's going to find a new way to respond in this time.
That's great. And Rick?
Yeah, our journey with Southern Writers, actually the impetus for this moment, the seed was planted about 2 years ago. I went on, my impulse is always to start with playwrights. So 2 years ago, I went on a road trip to the South, and I went to 12 towns in 10 days, asking people, who is the South? What is the South? Where is the South? When is the South? Sometimes much of the South lives in a different time period than we're currently in. And I took 4 playwrights with me. 4 playwrights went in a minivan, and we interviewed over 350 people, asking people, what is the state of the South? What came out of that was a plan for a really ambitious commissioning project to commission 22 new plays about transformative moments in the South. 22 because Alabama is the 22nd state. When we went into this crisis, we took what we had learned from that, and we went to 22 playwrights and asked them to write and respond to this moment from the theme of home. What does it mean to be in your home? What is home? How is home changing? 22 playwrights, they're all Southern, and they had a week to develop a piece, and then they, in collaboration with me, but most of them knew who they wanted to write for. This was really, really, really cool, was that the playwrights got to have an artist that they were inspired by, that they wanted to work with. And some really exciting project came out of that. The playwrights had a week to write. The actors then had a week to develop it in conversation with the playwright, and then they filmed their final performance. And what we have is a collection called 22 Homes, which is this beautiful collection of short pieces from actors responding to the theme of home. And what's come out of that now is like, the thing about theater people, sometimes there's things we don't have a lot of, but the thing we are never short on is ideas. So now this, like Taki said, it's artists who have all these different skills. There's not just it's just actors who are writing and directors who write. It's this incredible outpouring of ideas that I'm really excited by right now. I had a big Zoom call with our full company yesterday, and I said, there's moments I'm sad, but I'm not scared. I am really excited by what's coming, and I am so honored to be with all these brilliant people. I follow all you people, and I steal your ideas. I feel so honored to be on this group with you all.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we're in the middle of a seismic fundamental realignment of the sector, and in some ways it really is exciting. I was on a Zoom call earlier this week with Oscar Eustace, and he said something that really struck me that he said about his business model. He said, you know, they've operated off of offering free Shakespeare in the Park for years, hoping that it will pay off philanthropically. And what he said was people don't transactionally pay to get a ticket. What they do is philanthropically support a theater that gives away tickets, that gives away the free tickets. What are your thoughts about that, Rick?
It's so interesting. In fact, recently I looked at our executive director, our partner, and I said, it's time to give our Shakespeare away. And we have actually initiated the thought process of how we take our Shakespeare plays. We're based in a 200-acre park. And that is one of the things that has come out of this is how do we give more of this away? So that's amazing that you just asked me that, because we're actually looking to transition that our Shakespeare work will be free going forward.
Interesting. And Nataki, what are your thoughts on that?
I feel like we've been giving, I'm recent at OSF, but I feel like I inherited an organization that has been giving Shakespeare away since its beginning, both through the school visit partnerships and we have a lot of engagement with educational organizations, but we also have engagement with community arts organizations and community partnerships. And so we've always been in this sort of access space. And then in the future, you know, for me, I feel like moving OSF digital, moving into a digital landscape, we call it O, ours is called O. And moving into that space is just another point of access and another way to provide a pathway for people to access the material of Shakespeare. But I'm going to add something to this. I don't know if the proliferation of our foundational writer, which is Shakespeare, is exactly where we want to be seated at this moment. I actually wonder if using the energy and the drive of Shakespeare is where what we want to do, and use him as an example to proliferate reflections on where we are right now as a society. And so I'm actually more inclined towards that kind of proliferation and that kind of freedom than I am towards always having it be about how often can we push Shakespeare into the world. I think that Shakespeare is already in the world, and we're going to use that same road to make sure that there are inroads for other playwrights.
So amazing. That makes me just want to flag the fact that both of you started this conversation by, I mean, you're both at Shakespeare theaters, and you both started by talking about commissioning live writers, living writers, and what a huge, you know, I don't know when that shift happened, but it's music to, I think, probably a lot of our ears. Not that you haven't been doing it or your theaters haven't been doing it, but it's on that point, Nataki, it's really great to know. I want to, Teresa, turn to Robert for a minute.
Sure.
And Maria. So Robert, by contrast, you came in pretty recently and just at the point where your theater's new play festival, your renowned Humana Festival was happening, this all hit. And so I'm wondering, and I hear you may even have some breaking news for us today. What are you guys planning? What are you doing down there now?
I was going to say, what do you know that I don't know?
I know nothing. I just know what Joey told me.
You know, we had the distinction of having 5 companies ready to share world premieres. One had opened, one was in preview, one was in tech, one was still in the rehearsal hall, when we had to make the decision to be compliant with our mayoral decree that we stop public assembling for the safety of our patrons and our community. And as you can imagine, it was devastating to that group of artists who were so looking forward to the opportunity to share the work, for the whole company. This is a festival that's gone on for 44 years, and to be in the 44th year and have this happen was at some level unfathomable. But I think what we have found through this process over the last few weeks is how resilient artists are, how inspired they are by continuing to tell stories in whatever compromising circumstances we may find ourselves in. And there was a pretty quick pivot to initiating a platform, a digital platform with Actors Theater Direct, where we were able to capture a couple of the shows, share that on this on-demand multi-channel platform that actually is proven to be kind of what we're thinking of as a no regret investment, because we had a work that may have reached a really exciting audience in our four walls in our brick and mortar location, but by having a virtual platform was able to be shared with people as far as Argentina and China, the UK, and people who, I have more than one person from different economic classes say, oh, goody, I get to finally see a Humana show. Because I know so many of us prior to my actually being someone who was at a Humana show, which was the first time for me in 2016, even though I am a Kentuckian, that was the first time I had attended the Humana Festival of New American Plays. The idea that in some ways it was very accessible and exciting and kind of legendary, and then other ways really remote in terms of like, well, no, I hadn't been there before. So to know that we had the opportunity to share the work with people geographically unable to attend, those who have grown in disability. We have so many stakeholders who no longer can make their way to our brick and mortar location. They give their tickets away. They, rarely will come, but they'll continue to support. To be able to call a donor and say, I'm bringing this to your living room was exciting, and something that we're looking forward to being able to continue.
It's such an amazing discovery, because I'm thinking, a number of you here, maybe the majority of you, run destination theaters, or like I think of Actors Theater as destination for the Humana Festival, and how the ability to reach internationally and nationally, as you're talking about, kind of flips the dynamic of that, because suddenly you're providing out rather than people having to come in. What a fascinating note. Anything else that's up there that we should know about right now, or should I move on to Maria, right?
The thing that I can offer is, so many of us in the wake of this, situation have received PPP loans in order for us to help sustain our staffs and sustain our work. And we were able to bring back a significant amount of staff that had been furloughed due to this sudden situation. And what we're endeavoring on in the period that we have the loan is creating more content for a digital platform that has involved local artists, from spoken word artists to storytellers, activists to playwrights to those who work in mixed media. We're bringing back a number of our professional training company alum who have continued to develop and grow in the ways that they are not only actors, but generative artists in different mediums. And we're excited to have an opportunity to create a lot of content and work, and continue to be able to share stories in spite of the obstacles that are facing us. So that's what we're kind of headlong into at the moment.
That's amazing. Thank you. Maria, I feel like every day I get blasts from Woolly Mammoth that makes me think that you haven't stopped for a second doing what you do. And I want to hear about that. I know Teresa and I both do, but also I want to know about, a little bit about Play at Home. We were talking yesterday, Teresa and Joey and I, about how amazing at this moment to band together with others. So what do you got?
Yeah, well, it was a perfect segue, Robert, too, and Nataki and Rick. I am really honored to be in this crew, and if I could just hang with you, I can't wait to hang with you and actually give you physical high fives and maybe share a glass of wine would be really lovely. I look forward to that day. I'm buying. I know, right? You can hold me to that. So play at home. I want to give credit where credit is due. The brainchild of Play at Home is Stephanie Ibarra, the artistic director of Baltimore Center Stage. She's brilliant. She and I were talking, and it basically, as soon as the shelter and home restrictions happened, we were sort of lamenting of the fact that like it was everything that everybody was talking about was like dire and so like based on fear and scarcity, etc. And we have, you know, we basically were thinking to ourselves, okay, so what's something that is really simple that we can put together that everybody can, you know, sort of latch onto and potentially can actually give some folks some joy at home and give some folks, some audience members, like something, you know, a way to stay still connected to the theater. And so it was the originating theaters are Baltimore Center Stage, Woolly Mammoth, the Repertory Theater of St. Louis, the Public Theater in New York City, and Long Wharf in Connecticut. And we just started by commissioning a micro commission, so $500 to 5 writers each. And we all picked 5 different writers, and we asked them to turn around a 5 to 10 minute play that did not ever need to be produced, so they could do whatever they wanted. And it had to be multi-generational, right? Because we imagined that families at home would want to be able to read them and do them and stuff like that. So that was also something hard. Woolly is known for its edgy work, so I had to be like, okay, the most is PG-13, please. And then the only other guideline was we just hope that it will inspire joy in the folks reading it. So have that as a place where you're coming to creating this work. It's insane, right? How it's taken off. And other theaters have started to micro-commission writers. We are now at 104 commissions, have handed out over $50,000 to writers. There are theaters all across the country who have done it. The Kennedy Center just jumped on, and others. Romania last week started downloading these plays, a bunch of students in Romania. I don't know. And we have 20,000 people, 20,000 downloads of those plays, and 101,000 page views. I mean, this is like a lot for us and for the theater for us. And the thing about these plays is we've done them with our staff, we've done them with our board. There are ways to feel connected in some way. So it feels really great to have been able to actually do something and sort of think a little bit abundantly in the midst of all that fear and scarcity. And because it's not to say that that's not the case, but we can hold 2 thoughts at the same time. And that's what we were trying to do.
And that you've been able to do it collaboratively and collegially without proprietary.
No, yeah, we had a list. We started with a list of playwrights, and there was some overlap, obviously, with you know. So I definitely was like, I'm taking Diana. Oh, who are you taking? You know what I mean, like that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? But it was super. It was super fun because, frankly, what we wanted to do first was actually try to get to the writers whose shows had been canceled. So to actually put a little bit of money in their pockets, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's how we came up with those lists.
Yeah, and I read early on, Maria, that you turned the theater into a blood drive or a place that.
No, that wasn't. I've been trying to. If anybody wants to, anybody here, hey, you know, Woolly Mammoth is sitting empty probably until Labor Day. So food banking or any of that kind of stuff would be great. I've been, you know, they've been really busy, but there have been other places who have done some stuff like that for sure. We
Great.
did we have given our space over for virtual galas to like the Tahare Justice Center, who, works to combat domestic violence. And they, did this socially distanced virtual gala there, and we just gave them our space to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think the long-term strategy for resiliency is listening and connecting with our community. And, this crisis is hitting all of us differently. And I was really excited to read the New York Times article, Julianne, where you're actually opening up your theater. So can you tell us how you came to that decision and what's happening in your city?
Sure. First of all, Maria, I just think that sounds so fabulous. I mean, the plays, it's just great. And I love the joyfulness of it. And so many playwrights are able to share in it, but that's really exciting. Just to hear that tonight is exciting to me. Yes. Well, I'm like a kid of the live theater. I'm not of the digital. I want to see live theater, and I want to have that experience as much as possible. And we have 3 theaters, 2 very small ones, one 99 seat, one 136 seats, but we have a main stage theater that's 520 seats. And we just looked at it and we said, what could we do? It just so happens that the rows are far apart. They're about 3 feet apart. If you had an old, like a Broadway theater couldn't do this. The seats are really, Rick, you've been there. So Rick has been, and they're far away. And then we thought, well, what if we took out a row? We would literally have 6 feet. Okay. Then we looked at it and we said, well, how many seats would we have? We would plan on having like 2 seats empty, 2 seats. So you would have the social distancing, and it would be 163 seats. So I said, well, we're really doing a stage 2. Let's think of this as a stage 2. We canceled our season, which was South Pacific, Ain't Misbehavin', assembled parties, big shows. We're hopefully doing them next year. I'm actually more worried about 2021 than right now, believe it or not, but that's another story.
Yeah.
I think this can only last so long. And even what we're doing, the financial model that we're working on is 1 actor on the stage at a time. We can do that for a stage 2. Or what we're now calling our main stage, but I think it's problematic. It's a financial model that'll just work for what we're doing, which is August. Well, it's August through October. So this summer, starting on August 5th, we're doing Harry Clark, a 1-person show, which is a great, and it's clever and it's joyful in its own way. And I thought it was a wonderful show to start with. And then we're doing a number of concerts. And I'm not sure how Equity is dealing with all of this. So I wanted to just make sure I'm just doing like Harry Clark. Then we're doing a reading of a new play. We had to cancel the new work we were doing, but there's a 1-person show about Eleanor Roosevelt that Mark St. Germain wrote that Harriet Harris is going to do. We said, okay, we'll get through the summer doing those. We weren't sure if we would have an audience. And then in the fall, we're hoping to have more than 1 actor on the stage. We're doing a revival of our 10 by 10 new play festival, 10 new plays, 6 actors. Matt Penn and I are directing it. We figured a way that people would not have to be next to one another. Really, it's just amazing. And then, interesting enough, we're doing the price in October. 4 people who don't get along. We're thinking, they're not going to be next to one another. I can keep the policeman and the wife away, and the antique salesman and the doctor. Okay, we can kind of do that. But we had to do a lot. It wasn't so simple as all of that. The safety measures that we had to do, the consultants that we had to bring in. We have what are those electric magnetic spray machines? We're doing 2 of them. We're absolutely making sure the theater is unbelievably sanitized. We added an entrance to the theater. There's no tickets. Their names will be on clipboards. People will come in. There are 3 different entrances. We've learned a lot. We're doing a lot, and it's exciting. Now, here's the interesting thing, is that the season is selling out.
I believe that. Every time I hear somebody say, I'm so sick of looking at a screen, I kind of do the happy dance, right? I think people have cabin fever. I think, so you're going to be our case study.
Well, I was a little scared. I have to tell you, when we announced this, the board were all like, okay, it's not so bad. These are inexpensive shows. We'll be okay. We're hoping to add extra performances on a couple of them. And I don't know, and we have to be really careful. Obviously, it's about over communication. We have all of our social distancing things online. We're going to do a video showing people how we're cleaning everything. You know, we're down to the touchless sinks and the toilets and the soap dispensers.
Wow.
You have to sort of like, when somebody enters, we did it from, if you entered the theater and you got to your seat, and afterwards, how do you leave? You leave like you're leaving a wedding or the church, one row at a time. It's only 163. We can do it, but you can't survive. I mean, we couldn't with, we have like a gigantic musical that Josh Bergas and Mark St. Germain conceived called A Crossing, about Mexican migrants. And it has a cast of 18 and they're touching one another. It's with a Capuli Mexican dance company, and it's very involved. And I'm feeling like, when will we ever be able to do new musicals again? When can we do the kinds of things that we want to do? We've been working on this for 5 years and we had to postpone it. Everybody understands, but my heart and soul is developing the new work. And instead, I'm just trying to keep theater alive right now and just see if there's a way. I think social distancing is with us for a long time. I wish it were. So I'm trying to find some little way to keep it alive for a little while and see what we learn and just take it from there.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's really fascinating. I know we're almost out of time. I just really quickly, for some of us, we're leveling up and just meeting the needs of the crisis. I'm wondering what you're all doing to take care of yourselves. And Robert, I'll start with you. What are you doing to take care of yourself?
I got one of my little cats right here next to me at my feet. He keeps me pretty balanced. I think part of it is just making sure that everything we're doing is about love and finding ways of making this not a binary of either or, but yes and to all possibilities of ways to keep telling, ways to keep working together, ways to affirm creativity, and making sure that we stay in faith and stay in, we had a lot of attention towards wanting to make sure that we continue to think holistically about the work that we're doing, that which is good for the brain, the heart, the spirit, and often in a secular discipline like ours, we don't talk much about spirituality, but I really believe what we do has that kind of alchemical thing when it's really about just wanting to share our stories. And it's so fundamental to who we are and how we understand ourselves. So it's just staying in that and staying in the love and finding the way to say yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Robert. Julianne, what are you doing to take care of yourself through all of this?
I cook a lot. I'm Italian. I cook a lot of food often, even though it's just my husband and me right now. I mean, I cook a lot. I'm trying to stay in touch with the artists and the patrons. I think it's really any patron who's like alone, we're trying to call. I mean, we're really trying to stay in touch with people. But the people that get me the most joyful are the artists that I talk to, whether it's the playwright or the actors, and just knowing that we're all in this together. It's comforting.
Yeah. Maria?
I'm getting my steps in. I'm trying. And I'm watching, I will have a recommendation if folks haven't seen What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show about the 3 vampires. It is so good. So I'm laughing a lot. I'm trying to laugh a lot, mostly to try and take a break from the times that I'm not laughing. So that's how I'm taking care of myself.
Good. Nataki?
I bought a treadmill right before this, so it came in really handy. So I'm in line with you trying to get my steps in, Maria. I spent that first week feeling like, I could not even bring anything into focus. And I was actually really heartened by the artists and their response. Like almost immediately, I could go to Facebook or Instagram, or I was receiving a text from an artist friend of mine that was like, hey, we're doing this, or watch this, or witness this, or can you come in and talk to our students, at a theater school? And all of those moments for me have been probably some of the best of my life. that there's this, in the middle of this terribleness, there's this constant connection and engagement. And I actually don't mind if the sacrifice is to have to look at these boxes and hang out in these virtual spaces.
Yeah.
I'm actually thankful that we have them in the middle of this. And so I'm really heartened by that. I'm cooking a lot. I'm baking a lot. I learned how to make a really good Manhattan. You know, I have decided to join a few local wineries in the Ashland area in the Rogue Valley to support, but that's also been helpful. And then I'm engaging in conversations with some of my colleagues. I mean, weekly I'm having 5 or 6 conversations with groups of artistic leaders who are also artists. You know, these artistic leaders are also artists. And so that's also been that engagement. This engagement is heartening.
Yeah.
And I'm really inspired and thankful to be a part of this conversation.
Thank you, Nataki. Rick, what are you doing to take care of yourself?
Connecting with people and trying to manifest a constant generosity, a generosity with my spirit and my space and my time. And I've been trying to keep myself open to when something new and a new possibility comes our way. I mean, something new that we've done, like day 3 of quarantine, my husband walks in and goes, "Did you know we had a record player?" And so now every night ends with a new record being played. But to be able to manifest that now as I go to my theater every day and as I connect with my colleagues, how do we have that sense of generosity to what is going to come our way? I think this is an incredible moment, you know, for theaters, but particularly for ASF. You know, I'm in the process of putting together this brain trust of kind of council of thinkers, but it's an opportunity to go, well, it doesn't just have to be artists. This is a civic institution who can begin to imagine what this is going to be. So that's what I'm doing to take care of myself. People.
Yeah.
Hey, Teresa, can I turn that question on you? Because also, I was really moved yesterday, you talking about how your community is holding you up during this time. And I don't want to waste having you here. You're not just a playwright moderator, you're running a major place. So what are you doing?
Yeah, I'm getting my steps into, Maria, but you know, the people who loved us most, I found reached out to us first. And so even before we had to shelter in place, we had hand sanitizer and signage in the bathrooms on hand washing protocol. And we had the largest North Texas Giving Tuesday that we've ever had. So I'm feeling essential. I think that our audience, our community lets us know whether or not we are essential. And I feel that that our community in particular has really held us up through all of this. You know, the city of Dallas just furloughed 482 employees, 33 of which are from the Office of Arts and Culture. So we know that this is a marathon, not a sprint. It's going to be really hard in the months and perhaps years to come. But right now, I'm feeling cautiously optimistic because, like you said, Rick, I think it's a time for us, for many of us, we have waited for this moment to reimagine a more equitable, inclusive, sustainable sector. We are operating on outdated, union contracts and, not the ability to have endowments for many of us. And it's kind of nice now to have like 12 months cash reserves. That hadn't happened before. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and I'm making sure that I'm meditating and getting my steps in. I see that we have questions. Are we able to answer questions, Joey?
Yeah, Teresa, if you see something in chat that you think we can get to, and while if you'll glance at that for just a second, I just wanted to share with this group, while you're here. 2 weeks ago, we had a group of playwrights on, one of whom, Danielle Molman, had written a two-hander, and she was scheduled to self-produce it. And then we all went into lockdown, and she decided she was going to self-produce it anyway because she happened to know a large number of acting couples who were in quarantine together. So rather than producing a show where the actors are in their individual Zoom boxes, she could actually send them the script. They could perform it in their home together, and you could just watch. And every single performance is performed by a different cast in a different location. She's extended the run. Everybody's getting paid. I think it's miraculous. But what that made me think of is that as you all start to look to actually branching out and incorporating more actors, I know 3 blocks from me, there is a house of 3 equity actors who have been quarantined together for 9 weeks. They are eager to work, and they're all over this country. They're not just 3 blocks from me. So I just wanted to put that out there. There are pockets of resources that are just sitting there going, please, please pick me. Here's my casting breakdown of my home. It's pretty amazing. So if anybody wants to, any of our playwrights need 3 cast members, email me. I'll be happy to send it to you.
That's great. So the question that I'm looking at is, in Southern California, I've spoken to a few theaters that are looking at shutting down in-theater performances through January, some through next March. Robert brought up the PPP loans. About what are some of your survival plans for staying in existence? I guess anybody can take that question.
Well, we're raising money. I mean, we have to. After we get through this, mini season, as I call it, we're going to do, I think as many people are, we have to do a virtual, I hate to call it a gala, a virtual party or something to try to raise money. And then we're going to start a campaign basically for 2021 to get us through the end of 2020, but really looking ahead to 2021. So I think that's in order to keep people employed. We also got the PPP, but we want to keep people employed for as long as we can. And we are looking at furloughs unless we can raise that money. And that's what we're determined to keep our staff employed first. And I think that's first and foremost on our minds and on the board's minds.
We're in a slightly different boat because of the nature of our theater. We're a repertory theater, and so we open 5 at a time, sometimes 6 at a time. And the roll up to get to that is about 6 months, if not longer. So right now what we're doing is we're in a broad-based fundraising campaign called Dare to Dream. I am constantly talking to funders and institutional donors and individual donors about ways of helping, augmenting, reallocating. We are looking at our burn rate and looking for ways so that when we do emerge on the other side, we are more efficient and a better run theater. We are looking for ways to engage with artists because for me, the future of OSF is it's a container for artistry. It's a space for artists to do their work. The institution is filled with artists who work in all kinds of ways. And so how do I make sure that when we emerge, it's not about the institution, it's about the artistry. And that means that I'm going to have to contract around some areas in order to make sure that we can be that place where artists and arts grow and the immersion of new ideas and stories can grow. And that's requiring for me to spend the bulk of my time being essential and doing the fundraising and having the conversations. That's what we're doing.
I wanted to just jump in and say, I think that we were definitely in triage mode to begin with, right? And essentially just trying to do everything we can to try and figure out how, what the shifting landscape is. And now that we're sort of still in a shifting landscape and going to continue to probably be in a shifting landscape, we're looking at the fact that this is going to be affecting us for 18 to 24 months, if not beyond, right? So, so the question about sort of our sustainability in that business model is going to be about our adaptability, our resilience, our nimbleness, et cetera. One of the ways that Wooly started talking about it is we've coined the term the mammothon, because it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
And so it's basically like we are, of course, we you know, we're in the early miles of that marathon, right? And part of that is going to be about finding new ways of using our resources, capitalizing on those resources, and then also finding new resources, right? So that's, I think that to me, when we say like we're all in the same boat in that regard, a lot of nonprofits are going to do that. And that's what's a little scary moving forward, right? Because as soon as everything lifts up, everybody and their mother is going to basically be like, I talked to a donor today who's like, I'm not checking email. I keep getting asked for money. And I was like, yeah, because you have some, give it away. What's happening, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Rick, did you want to weigh in on that question?
Sure. So much about what we do as artistic directors is about communication. It's about communicating and connecting with people. So that's what I've been spending a lot of time doing. Fundraising, like my colleagues have been saying. I feel very fortunate that we have a board that has been very forward thinking and has risen to the occasion to give me the space to also be able to keep setting out where are we going. I loved Nataki's metaphor for the vessel, like to keep creating that. We have a board that's being very forward thinking, and we're thinking this is it's a marathon, a mammothon.
Yeah. Joey, do we have time for one more question?
We do, Teresa.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Here's a question from Carlos, and he says, what role do you think designers can play in innovating and augmenting an online theater experience? Go ahead, Maria.
I have to jump in here. One of the things, there's a number of things. The first is I was really, Jared Mizzachi, who's a company video designer for Wooly, he runs the projection design program at UMD, just did Queen Wing's She Kills Monsters with his students on Zoom, and did like actual like production value and things like that. He co-directed the piece. It was amazing kind of stuff. In terms of what it is they did. A lot more than my shitty virtual backgrounds, let me tell you. But the thing that I want to sort of say in terms of designers is let's actually talk to you about picking the projects and actually include you in the conversations, like we're talking about bringing artists to the table and sort of having these, you know, this cadre of playwrights. And then Joey brought up actors. Now, designers also, are some of the best dramaturgs I know, for sure, and don't often get paid for that part, you know? But I keep thinking like they're also really invested in making new work. So many of these designers actually make a living making new work. And so I just wonder whether or not we can actually bleed and transform the way we think about new work departments, not as sort of siloed places, or even artistic planning and season planning, not as such siloed places, but also include designers in that conversation too.
Yeah. Julianne, do you have any thoughts about that question?
You know, because as far as working with designers online, digitally, I'm not doing that now, but I agree with Maria. I mean, just get the designers involved very, very early. We just have to. They're our co-creators. And I think now we're going to be looking at and asking designers, as we have to, I think, bring our budgets in a little bit, can you be a little more creative if you don't quite have quite as much money in the budget? I mean, to be very realistic, I think we're going to be looking at that. Hopefully it won't be too much, but I'll be challenging myself as a director to be working with the designers in that way. My expectations have to be different too. So I will ask other people working here, directors and so forth. I think we all have to be a little bit more creative, because I think we may have to contain ourselves for, we don't know how long.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, go ahead, Nataki.
Hi. Okay.
Mhm.
There was a piece I just read recently on Facebook. I can't attribute it to what source it was, but they were talking about how those of us who have our roots or have worked in experimental theater will be the ones to be able to emerge. And one of the first things I thought about was, as I was reading that piece, is that's right. I went to, Cal Arts. Most of my colleagues are working in these arenas that that did not require walls or spaces or conventional ways of coming to storytelling. That I actually come from a background of that other kind of practice. It was really important for me to remember that about myself, because it also allowed me to remember that I want to spend these next couple of weeks getting in touch with my crazy colleagues that I went to graduate school with, who are all working as designers and directors and producers and writers, who still have that as essential to their roots. And I was recently asked to look at a group of videos for a group of students at Cal Arts. And if you want to know how to do it, engage with young people. They're already doing it. They're not asking
That's
the
right.
difference between video or not video, online or not online. They're just engaging.
Yep.
And so get some young people in your midst.
Good advice. Really good advice. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. It's been really wonderful, you guys. Thank you. I want to also just toss in, if you probably want to wrap, Teresa, but just to say, I mean, we're talking about survival and we're talking about your managerial ingenuity, but I want to also thank you for your artistry in this moment. And, when I hear that, Nataki, when you talk about getting in touch with the crazies you went to school with, because, you guys are here because you were those crazies. And, and it's really hard to remember at moments like this that under it all is not just like who's going to get furloughed and for how long, but how do you keep that artistic fire alive in each of yourselves? Because if you don't, we're cooked, So thank you for that as well. Teresa, what a joy to do this with you.
Yeah, thank you, Todd. You are the inimitable co-facilitator.
What a distinction.
It's true. I'm going to echo that, and I'm also going to reflect that back on you, Teresa. Thank you both for being here. Thank you all, and I want to do one quick follow-up, if I could, with the group that's here. Are any of you? I just read an article in the New York Times this morning about how certain outdoor spaces here in the city, where it's the most dense and the worst, are considered to be some of the things where they're going to be opening things up a little sooner. I just wonder if you all are looking at any of the outdoor spaces that are around you. Yeah, Nataki, you're nodding.
Yeah, we're awesome.
We have an outdoor theater, so we're of course trying to figure out how to respond through that space. We have a couple of outdoor theaters. We also have the green space, and we're actually looking at how we might engage in telecasting to the nearby Lithia Park. Our theater is located inside of the park, so it's just a quick jaunt over to the park. So we're talking to some of our city leaders right now about some of their plans to sort of keep festival going in this time when we are actually not able to produce, but we do have the ability to produce, help other people produce and provide space. So we're looking at that now.
Mm-hmm.
As you may know, in New York, things are leveling out and cases are stabilizing and going down. Here in the South and the Midwest, and rural communities, we're starting to see increases and that kind of a thing. So we're all kind of on a little bit of a different timetable. Our current, we've got an exquisite Homestead Park system that is currently through the Metro government shut down for the foreseeable future, but we are in those conversations about navigating some of the amphitheater and perhaps those being venues that we can also share the work.
Yeah, that's great. As we have these discussions about high technology and future technology that doesn't even exist, I thought we would just might take a moment to look back to the Greeks, just while we're here. Thank you all so much. I'm sorry to wrap this up because I would like to just keep you all here all night, and I know that you'd rather do other things. So I'm just going to say thank you again. Thank you for everything that you're doing, and really thanks for taking my email. I really appreciate it.
It's been
Thank
great.
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
What an honor.
Thank you.
Thank you
Great
very
being
much.
here with everybody.
Thank you for the invite. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks to all of our guests.
Thank you.
Amanda, will you help me kick this off?
Yes, Lisa Kron and Teresa Coleman Walsh.
Todd London and Nataki Garrett.
Rick Dildine and Maria Goyanis.
Robert Barry Fleming and Julianne Boyd.
And thanks to the staff, of course, the Dramatist Guild, Sarah Rebel and Zach Turner.
Lily
Lily
Dwoskin
Dwoskin.
and Emmanuel Wilson.
And Amy Von Masick for filling in for Terry Stratton behind the scenes. Get well, Terry.
That's right. Get well, Terry. And thanks to my co-hosts, Amanda Green and Christine Toy Johnson, and to all of our viewers for being here. I think this was our biggest audience yet. We're going to take a week off, but we'll be back Thursday, May 28th at the same time. So thanks again, be well, and have a good night.
Thank
Thank you for coming on.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for giving
Bye.
us
Thank
hope and
you.
inspiration.